cross-examine?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Good afternoon.
Now, you indicated on direct that you were familiar with the scene and were able to identify certain photographs from this particular scene, correct?
Correct.
You also stated that the pictures that you were shown was the only areas in this apartment where blood was located, correct? As far as the living room and that hallway leading out to the door is a blood trail, correct?
The photo shows a lot of blood inside the interior, yes.
Okay. And as far as your memory, the photographs that were shown of you were the only areas where blood was located inside of this apartment, correct?
There was a lot of blood in this apartment. I can't
Okay.
absolutely answer your question on where specific blood droplets are in
Okay.
specific areas in this interior.
But you did testify during direct that your words pretty much this is where the areas where the blood was located, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
As a point of clarification, sir, are you an evidence taker?
No.
Is it your job to look for where blood may be throughout the residence?
No.
Okay.
Just check.
Did you notice any blood on the steps going downstairs?
Yes.
Okay. And it was a trail of blood going downstairs. That'd be a fair statement, correct? Going to the basement, correct?
There are droplets of blood also on the stairwell as well.
Okay, and that's leading to the basement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that was not illustrated in the pictures and exhibits you have, correct?
I could look over the pictures again and make sure, but
Yes, please.
Exhibit 9 shows blood also on that stairwell that you're referring to, leading downstairs to the basement.
You said exhibit 9?
Sorry, let me clarify the number. Exhibit number 4, apologize. Correction.
Okay. It'd be fair that exhibit 4 shows blood at the top of the steps, correct? At the very top of the step, the first step, if you will, correct?
Yes, there's blood on top of the steps as well.
Okay. And it'd be a fair statement that there was blood droplets at the very bottom of the steps, correct?
There's blood all over that hallway leading downstairs to the steps, yes.
Leading to the basement, correct?
I don't recall any blood in the basement, but there were blood on that stairwell.
Okay. And you said you're familiar with the pictures that were taken at the scene, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if I were to show you some pictures, you would be able to identify if it came from the scene, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach? Please.
Yes.
And just for clarification, Sergeant, you're answering yes to as there was blood drops on the steps leading to the basement as much as even the bottom step, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you can go to exhibit number 4. And the blood stain at exhibit number 4, you would agree that there's a high concentration of blood. Matter of fact, the highest concentration of blood seems to be in this particular area, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would it suggest to you that possibly the body was laying at this particular area for a period of time?
Don't ask the witness to speculate.
But you would agree that there's a high concentration of blood, correct?
There's a lot of blood in that area, yes.
Okay. At the same exhibit, where the puddle of blood is, in the bottom right corner, there's somewhat of an outline. Does that appear to be a footprint in the blood to you?
I'm not sure which area you're referring to.
It's in the bottom corner, it's the bottom square, as far as the tile. The right bottom tile, it's halfway between that tile and the tile to the left. So it's sharing both tiles.
Yes.
Okay. You would agree that appears to be a footprint, correct?
It's hard to say, but yes, I can make out a
Okay.
footprint from there.
And you would agree that the footprint is leading towards the back of the house away from the front door, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, may I show you another picture from the scene that you may be able to identify?
Sure.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Now, Sergeant, after seeing this picture, you would agree that that appears to be a footprint, another footprint, correct?
That resembles a footprint in
Okay.
that photo, yes.
And this had another area, and it seems to be leading to the back of the house, away from the front door, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
You redirect?
No, Judge, but just for clarity of the record, in terms of the two photos that Mr. Brown referred to, I guess we just refer to those as defense A and B, assuming you.
Yes, I tend to admit those.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I apologize. If I could just speak to the People's Exhibit, I believe it was 10, the medical examiner's report.
You want to speak to?
Yeah, I just want to read a couple things into the record that I believe it's pretty important for the purposes of this preliminary examination.
Go ahead.
Okay. The medical examiner indicated that there were other injuries, head and neck. There were contusions on the left medial forehead, 1 and 1.25 inches, and left lateral orbit, 2.25 inches and 0.4 inches in diameter. Extremities. There were contusions on the medial right elbow, 0.5 inches in diameter. The left dorsolateral wrist, 1.5 times 0.5 inches. Proximal anterolateral right thigh, 0.4 inches in diameter. Proximal anterior left thigh, 1.75 times 3/4 of an inch. Proximal anterolateral left thigh, 0.3 inches in diameter. Left leg, 1.5 times 1.5 inches, and posterior right leg. There were clusters of contusions on bilateral knees, proximal anterior legs, and the medial left hallux. There were abrasions on the left elbow with associated contusions, 1.25 times 3/4 region. Right knee, discontinuously vaguely linear, and left knee. Thank you.
All right. Sir, I have just a couple questions for you. You already indicated that you are not a tetanus technician, is that right?
That's correct, Judge.
Do you have any experience or training in fingerprint or footprint analysis?
No.
Okay. So how certain are you that what's been in people's, what was that, exhibit A and B?
A and B, yes.
Are footprints?
So I'm fairly certain it resembles a footprint.
Okay. Any questions based on my question?
Just briefly,
No.
Your Honor, Sergeant, in terms of the footprints that you observed, did you see any that appear to have been made from shoes, or were these bare footprints from your basic observation?
One that was shown to me by defense.
That, and I guess in general, anything that you observed at the scene as it relates to footprints.
So the footprints that I was shown today looked like they were bare footprints.
Okay. Do you recall seeing any footprints that appeared to be from a shoe?
I don't recall at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may step.
Thank you, Judge.
Next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the people call Trooper Alex Martinez. For the record, Alex, common spelling, A-L-E-X, and Martinez, also common spelling.
Good afternoon, sir. Please step forward.
Good afternoon.
Please raise your right hand. Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat in the witness box next to me. Speaking to that long microphone that's to your left. Place that in your lap. Yes, sir. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Alexander Martinez.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm employed by the Michigan State Police.
And what's your current role with the Michigan State Police?
I'm a detective trooper assigned to the Homicide Task Force.
And what is the Homicide Task Force?
The the Homicide Task Force is a team comprised of members of the Detroit Police Department, the Michigan State Police, and the ATF.
Okay, and in terms of your role with the Homicide Task Force, have you been involved with the investigation into the death of Samantha Woll?
Yes, I have.
And as part of your involvement with that investigation, did you have an opportunity to draft any search warrants requesting documents from a company by the name of ADT?
Yes, I did.
And what was your purpose for drafting search warrants to ADT?
The purpose was to collect information and data from the home security system that Samantha Woll had at her residence.
Okay, and how many search warrants did you submit to ADT?
I submitted 2 different warrants to ADT for records.
Okay, and why 2 as opposed to 1?
Well, we submitted a ADT warrant to obtain the records for the night of the homicide for that investigation purpose. Then we submitted a subsequent search warrant to ADT to obtain records from a testing that we conducted at the residence with the security system.
Okay, and in terms of both of those search warrants that were submitted, did you obtain records back from ADT?
Yes, I did.
Okay. At some point during the investigation, was a particular suspect developed?
Yes.
And how, just in general terms, was that suspect, that individual developed as a suspect?
It was developed through CCTV footage from the Chrysler Elementary School on Lafayette, just east of Brevard, as well as the correlation of cell phone records that were developed throughout the investigation.
Okay, and as a result of that suspect being developed, were you part of any efforts to take that suspect into custody at some point?
Yes, I was.
And when was that suspect first taken into custody?
That would be November 30th.
Okay, and what was your role in connection with taking that suspect into custody?
I was assisting in a mobile surveillance operation of the suspect for this investigation. We started our surveillance in the area of Utica and 13 Mile Road and Roseville. We conducted mobile surveillance.
I'm sorry. Can you only testify to what he personally observed and what he personally did?
Were you with them?
Yes, this is what I observed and did. Okay. I was in my unmarked police vehicle participating in this surveillance operation in the area of 13 in Utica. We followed the suspect south on Utica near Castle.
And was the suspect driving a particular vehicle?
Yes, he's driving his 2007 Dodge Charger, which is registered in his name.
Okay, and At some point, was that particular suspect stopped and taken into custody?
Yes.
And did you observe that yourself?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do you happen to see that particular suspect that was taken into custody on November 30th in the courtroom today?
Yes, I
And
did.
for the record, could you point to that suspect and describe what that individual was wearing?
Yes, to my right, wearing a green shirt with a white undershirt underneath and a blue mask.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
So no,
And on that particular day, on November 30th, in connection with the arrest of the defendant, did you do anything else relevant when it comes to your investigation, your role in this investigation?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do after the defendant was taken into custody?
I authored a search warrant for his vehicle and ultimately obtained a signed search warrant to search the vehicle, and I seized an Apple iPhone in a red case.
Okay, and where did you seize that the Apple iPhone in the red case? Where did you seize that from?
From that 2007 Dodge Charger.
Okay, do you recall where it was situated in the vehicle?
Yes, it was on the driver's seat.
Okay, and when you seized that phone, what did you do with it?
I transported that to the Detroit Public Safety Headquarters, placed it on evidence, and it was evidence item 155.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, nothing further.
cross-examine.
Good afternoon, Trooper.
Good afternoon.
A couple of brief questions. Now, you stated that you was a part of the surveillance and you seized a phone from my client, correct?
Yes.
Okay. At that particular time, you didn't have a warrant to seize that phone, correct?
I seized the phone after obtaining the warrant.
Okay. You just testified that he left the phone on the driver's seat, correct?
It was left there, and I didn't touch it until I had a warrant.
Okay. Isn't it true that you ordered my client to leave that phone on the seat?
I never spoke with your client at the traffic stop. No.
So it wasn't you who put him into arrest, correct? Under arrest, correct?
I'm sorry?
It wasn't you who put him under arrest, correct?
I did not place him under arrest, no.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Let me redirect.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may stay.
Thank you very much.
Next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the people call Sarah Markle. And for the record, her name is spelled S-A-R-A, Markle, M-A-R-K-E-L.
Ms. Markle, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please have a seat. The witness box next to me. Use the tall microphone to your left. You can actually place that in your lap and speak directly into that voice, okay? Give me ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Sarah Markle.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a detective with the Detroit Police Department assigned to our homicide unit. My job at the homicide unit is to do phone extractions.
And just for the record, briefly, can you explain what a phone extraction is?
Yeah, phone extraction is when I have the actual device, the cell phone at my desk, I use software to make a copy of the contents within the phone.
Okay, and as it relates to the investigation into the death of Samantha Woll, did you perform some phone extractions?
I did.
And was one of those phones a iPhone that was placed on evidence tag 43?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm holding what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibits 11, 12, and 13. Your Honor, may I approach?
You ready?
Starting with proposed exhibit 11, what is proposed exhibit 11?
Eleven is the first 2 pages of the extraction report from an iPhone SE.
Okay, and is there any way from that particular exhibit that identifies the user of that particular iPhone by like an account name, for instance?
There is an Apple ID account associated with the phone.
And what is that Apple ID?
sam.woll@gmail.com.
Okay, now, in terms of this particular report, Exhibit 11, how can you explain just briefly for the record, how is that report, how does that report come into existence?
The Cellbrite report?
Yes.
So when I do the extraction, it makes that copy of the whole phone, all of the contents within the phone. From there, I provide a copy to the officer in charge and put a copy in evidence. These pages here are portions of that report of the whole phone extraction. Because they are very large in size, because we just have a lot on our phones. So it would be impractical to try to print an entire phone extraction, so these are just portions of.
Okay, and if you were to go back into the full extraction from this particular phone and attempt to generate a report today of just the phone's basic device information, would that have substantially similar appearance to that document that you're holding that's marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 11?
Yes, I could recreate these first 2 pages from the copy that I have on evidence. I could make these 2 copies, print them off again if I needed to.
Okay, Your Honor, with that, I move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 11.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
Okay, and how about Proposed Exhibit 12? What is Proposed Exhibit 12?
Proposed Exhibit 12 is 8 pages in length from a section called the timeline in the overall extraction report.
Okay, and if you were to go back into the overall extraction report and try to generate a timeline from the device limited to the period of time from 1 a.m. through 4:30 a.m. on October 21st, 2023, would that report be substantially similar to that document that you're holding now that's been marked as Proposed Exhibit 12?
It would.
Okay, Your Honor, with that, I move to admit Proposed Exhibit 12.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
And in terms of the timeline, what kind of information can we glean, if anything, from a device's timeline in general using the Cellbrite program?
So the timeline takes the information from the phone and puts it into chronological order. It's just one of the features of the Cellbrite report. There are different sections where you could look at, say, the calls or the text messages or different areas individually, or in the timeline section, it puts all of those categories together and allows you to look through in chronological order through specific time frames if that's where your investigation leads you to.
Okay, now when it comes to communications reflected in the timeline, are you able to tell whether the communication is an outgoing communication versus an ingoing communication?
Yes, direction is given.
Okay, and in that particular exhibit, Exhibit 12, does that reflect both outgoing and incoming communications?
So on these pages, there's one outgoing.
Okay, and what is the time reflected for that one outgoing communication?
The time is October 21st, 2023 at 1:02 a.m.
Okay, and after that point, I guess based on the report that you have in your hand, are there any outgoing communications after that?
No.
Okay. Taking a look at proposed exhibit 13, are you familiar with the ability to generate a report about a device's activity?
Yes.
And what sort of information in general can we obtain from a device activity report using Celebrate?
So activity would be whatever activity is in the device itself.
Okay, does that include things like turning the phone on, turning the phone off?
That would be in events,
I'm
device
sorry,
events.
I meant to say device event, okay. What sort of information in general can we, I guess, get from a device event report?
Device events will include if the phone display is on, an unlock of the phone, powering events if the phone powered off, powered on, connections, different things with the actual device.
Okay, and in terms of proposed exhibit 13, the document that you're holding, if you were to go back into Celebrate in terms of the full extraction today and pull a device event report limited to the time of 12 a.m. through 8 a.m. on October 21st, 2023, would that report be in substantially the same condition as that proposed exhibit that you're holding?
It would.
Okay. With that, Your Honor, I move to admit proposed exhibit 13.
No, good.
Admitted.
Okay. And Detective Markle, I want to draw your attention to the time frame between 1:29 a.m. and 1:35 a.m. Is there any activity reflected in the activity in the event report during that particular time frame?
Yes, the device was unlocked.
Okay, and when was the device unlocked?
1:29 a.m.
And when was the device locked again?
About 6 minutes later, 1:35.
Okay, and after that 1:35 point, do you see any indication that the device was unlocked again?
No.
Okay, now in your training and experience in terms of analyzing phone extractions, is it consistent with there being human input needed to unlock an Apple iPhone?
Yes.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, a passcode is our security on our phones. So phones don't just arbitrarily unlock themselves. Somebody has to know the passcode or be able to input the correct information to unlock the phone.
Okay, and this particular phone that you did the extraction for, was it passcode protected?
It was.
Okay, and absent the passcode, would there be any other way to unlock that particular type of iPhone?
On this particular phone, I don't know if any biometrics were set up, but this phone would also allow for a fingerprint unlock, but I'm not sure if that was something that had been established on the phone.
Okay.
It did have a 6-digit passcode or PIN code.
After the 1:35 a.m. Point in time on October 21st, 2023, do you see any evidence in that report consistent with there being human input into the device?
No.
As part of your role in this investigation, did you also have an opportunity to extract a device that was a iPhone XR placed on evidence tag 155?
Yes.
And I'm holding what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 14. May I approach, Your Honor? is People's Proposed Exhibit 14, again, just a preliminary report, the first couple pages, if you will, of the full report associated with that particular phone.
It is.
Okay, and again, if you were to go back into the full report today and try to generate just the first couple of pages, would it be substantially similar to that document that you're holding that's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 14?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, I move to admit Proposed Exhibit 14.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, no objection.
Admit it.
Okay, and is there any kind of username or account information reflected for this phone in Exhibit 14?
Yes, there is an Apple ID.
Okay, and what is the Apple ID?
Mick Jack, it's MICJACK5 at iCloud.com.
Okay, and does this report also tell us what phone number was associated with the phone that you extracted that generated this report?
Yes,
And what was that phone number?
248-906-5529.
Thank you, nothing further.
Cross examine.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Good afternoon.
Now, can I focus your attention on Exhibit 12?
Yes.
Specifically, item 81, where it says activity sensor data.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean to you when you see that particular?
So the activity sensors would be activity that, so if our phone is moving, if we're counting steps, the activity sensor could also log if we're wearing some type of wearable technology, like I wear a watch.
Okay.
So it would be something, either the phone is collecting the activity or it is synced to a device that is collecting activity.
Okay. And your analysis of this phone, were you under any type of knowledge that there was a wearable device that was synced to this particular device?
I asked about any wearable devices. I was told there were none.
Okay. And you would agree that this activity sensor data is at 4 a.m. on October 21st, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So from your knowledge, that'll indicate that there was some movement of the phone at approximately 4 a.m., correct?
No.
You said, so let me back up. So I'm clear. You said activity sensor data would indicate that there was possibly counting steps or some type of activity, correct?
So the activity sensor is constantly collecting that. Now in this line, there is no activity detected, but our phones will continue to collect. If we have that feature turned on, it will continue to collect that activity. The number would just be reported as 0.
Okay, fair enough. Now, if I can divert your attention to exhibit number 13. Where you indicated on that there was a locking or unlocking of the phone, at approximately 1:27 a.m.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I may ask you, do you know what type of passcode was on this particular device that would have unlocked it? Was it a face? Was it a passcode?
So there was a 6-digit passcode.
Okay.
On this particular type of phone, the iPhone SE, there is not the capability for facial recognition, so it can't have facial recognition.
Okay.
It can have a fingerprint, but I'm not sure if a fingerprint was set up on the phone.
Okay. And would you be able to come to that conclusion by analyzing the phone, whether or not a fingerprint had been set up?
I would have to go back into the device to check and see if the if there was anything set up, I could possibly
Okay.
find that information, but I don't know offhand.
Okay, so that's something that you haven't tried to do already when you did your first analysis, correct?
No.
Okay. Now, looking at Exhibit 13, what line is it that illustrates that there was a locking of the phone subsequent of there being an unlock of the phone?
So on the same line, let me find it.
And just for the record, could you indicate which number you're looking at?
Okay, so I'm looking at line number 37. You see the start time and the end time.
Okay.
So it was unlocked, and then that end time, a lock.
Okay. So there would it be a fair, I guess, assumption that there is not a separate line that would indicate that the phone, in fact, locked?
Correct, where it says end time.
Okay.
Same line though.
Okay, just to be clear.
Correct.
How
Correct.
there's a separate line and box there states that this phone was unlocked. My question is there a separate line and number that would indicate, in fact, the phone was locked?
No.
Okay. Now, do you know if this phone would have, looking at line 40 where it says Wi-Fi stayed connected, it states that this phone was connected at approximately 1:38 on October the 21st. Do you know if this particular phone would automatically connect to a Wi-Fi, or you would have to actually manually push a button in order for it to connect?
I could tell you what typically would happen, but I can't tell you.
Okay. You can tell you can tell us what happened in this particular case.
Right.
Okay. Could you tell us which Wi-Fi this phone connected to at that time?
Not from this information, just that there was a connection.
Okay. So is that typically information that is not able to be obtained on which Wi-Fi a phone connected to?
Well, no, you could look in the Wi-Fi connection section in the extraction. It's just not in this particular printout where this is device events.
Okay. And did you do that analysis on Wi-Fi connections on the phone?
I looked at a lot in this phone. I know that Wi-Fi connections were something that were looked at. I couldn't tell you the exact information at this point, though.
Okay. But it would be fair that it seems that this phone connected to the Wi-Fi after what you indicate the phone being locked, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what does display on, off, or display on mean?
So that's just the, when your phone lights up. So it could be a notification. When I get notifications, my screen lights up. That's the display lighting up or turning on or display on.
Okay, so let's go to item 44 at 4:17 approximately on October 21st. It says display on. Are you able to tell us why, in fact, the display came on at that particular time?
No.
Okay. Are you able to tell us why it came on line 43 at 3:48 a.m.?
No.
Okay. So, in other words, out of all of these, and it's several, you would agree that after 1:38, there's approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 displays on from the time of 1:38 until approximately 4:41 in the a.m., correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're not able to tell us why this phone display actually came on at those times, correct?
Correct. Not in the device events.
Okay, so you don't know whether or not if somebody manually tried to cut the phone on or not, correct? Or tried to access the phone. But that would make the phone come on, correct? Display
Well, that
come on.
would be, yes, that could, if I'm understanding you correctly, like if somebody were to try to tap on the phone
Yes.
to unlock it,
Yes.
that would make the display come on.
Okay. Is there a way that one could find out why, in fact, the displays came on in this time frame?
That would be something possibly in notifications or other activity on the phone.
Okay.
There are many sections on the phone. This is limited to 6 pages in the device events though.
Okay. Were you able to analyze that particular data and cross-reference it with these times to determine why display came on at the times?
I know that there were notifications at various points. I can't pinpoint the exact time. I wouldn't be able to give you that type of a detailed answer right now with what I have in front of me.
Okay. And just one last question, going back to Exhibit 12, under 83 where it states locations, would it be fair to say that that's just the phone, or the, I guess, lack of a better term, the server trying to check and verify the location of the phone?
You said line 83?
Line 83 of Exhibit 12.
So 83 is the location of the phone. So that is the latitude, longitude. You see that in the farthest column there. It's a native location, so that's going to be where the device was recorded as being at that time.
Okay. And if you look at the 83, the longitude and latitude location info, and compare it to, and that's at 4:03 a.m. If you compare that to the longitude, latitude of item number 80, you would agree that there's a slight difference in the location, longitude, latitude, correct? 80 and 83.
Well, with any longitude, latitude, there will be a very
okay, you would
slight difference,
Okay.
yes.
So you would agree to that, okay.
I'm 80 and 83.
Mm-hmm.
A very, very minute. We're talking about the
Okay. Okay, thank you.
6th decimal point over.
Okay, so you would agree there's a difference though, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you would also agree that there is a difference between line 79 and line 80. And line 79 being at 352 compared to line 80 at 358. You would also agree that's a difference, correct?
A very small difference. That's the 5th decimal point over.
Okay. So you don't know whether or not the phone was actually physically moved, even maybe a foot or two during this time frame, correct?
I suppose you could be correct on that.
Okay. Thank you. And you would also agree that line 74, line 75, line 76 all have a different variable as far as their longitude and latitude, correct?
Do you want me to review them
Yes, please.
up here?
Yes, please.
70.
74, 75, and 76.
Same thing, yes.
Okay. Now, do you know how often these location, I guess, notifications or checks would come to the phone?
That depends on the way that the phone is set up by the user.
Okay. Is it possible from your understanding that if the phone is physically moved, then it would send a different, I guess, location device, which would be then able to be viewed on this analysis?
If the phone.
If the
is
phone is
moved-
physically moved, like if I have my phone on me right now,
Right.
my phone is here, and then I move my phone over here, then it would send a location change to the server, which would then just pick a different longitude, latitude.
So the server is a global positioning satellite.
Okay.
It's not a server.
I apologize.
And you're talking about feet, so there could be a 10,000th of a degree difference,
Okay.
sure, or it could be the same. I mean, we're talking about
Okay, fair.
inches or feet.
Okay, fair enough. Do you know whether or not this particular phone had the location sharing on?
I don't know if there was location sharing on.
Okay. And you would agree that on phones that have the location turned on, the location information that is shared from that phone is more accurate than a phone that has the location turned off, correct?
So you're talking about two different things. You're talking about location sharing or location being turned on, because those are two quite different things.
Okay.
Location sharing is if I am sharing my location with a friend or a family member
Okay.
through a Find My Phone app or similar type app where they can look at me. A location turned on is the phone, I'm allowing my phone to collect my location data. Two very different things.
Okay. But you would agree if you allow your phone to collect location, you are sharing that location with possible third-party entities, correct? You would agree to that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it wouldn't be an incorrect statement for somebody to say if your phone's location is on, it is actually sharing. That'd be a fair statement, right? Maybe it's not the most technical way of looking at it, but it wouldn't be an incorrect statement, correct?
Location collecting would be the better word. If
Okay.
you are location turned on and you have allowed it, that would be a location
Okay.
collection.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Sharing is different.
Thank you. But you would agree then, if an individual turned on their location collecting, then the location information that is transmitted from the phone would be more accurate than an individual who had their location turned off. You would agree to that, correct?
You would have to if you have location on versus off.
So you would agree to that, yes? That's all I'm asking you, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated you don't know whether or not the location on this particular device was turned on or off, correct?
No, the locations were turned on. That's how we're collecting location activity. If they were off, we wouldn't be able to collect locations.
Oh, so they were turned on.
So
Okay.
in order to collect locations, the phone has to be allowing locations to be collected.
Okay. And since the location is turned on, would it be a fair statement that movement of the phone would trigger new data that would then have to be transmitted?
I don't know who we're transmitting anything to, but the
The global.
movement of the phone would be the similar as the activity that we talked about. Your phone is constantly collecting this, whether you're moving or not. It's
Okay.
going to indicate either no activity or no movement or some type of movement, but it's constantly collecting data.
Okay. So if your phone location is turned on, isn't it true that it's transmitting information to the GPS satellites and back to know where this phone is in location, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now my question is, if that location is turned on and the phone is moved, it would transmit new data that would then have to be transmitted to the GPS satellites and back to the phone to triangulate, or for lack of a better term, to know exactly where this phone is located.
Now, if we're talking about the 10,000th of a decimal difference in latitude, longitude, no, not necessarily.
You said not necessarily, but you don't know
Right.
whether or not the phone actually moved, correct? That would trigger the change of longitude, latitude. That's correct, right?
Sure.
Okay. And if a phone is moved, say 10 or 15 feet or 5 feet, you can't say to what decimal point the longitude or latitude would change. You can't say that, can you?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Detective Markle, when it comes to the first phone that we were discussing, it was on evidence tag 43.
Yes.
Is there anything necessarily consistent with human input in the phone that you see in the data after 1:35 a.m. on October 21st, 2023?
No, so the last sign of actual user interaction or user input was the last text message at 1:02 a.m. and the unlocked at I think it was at 1:29 a.m.
Okay. And so in your experience, in terms of the other data you see after that 1:29 a.m. Time frame, is there anything that's necessarily consistent with active human input into the phone?
No, our phones are always working. They're always on. They're always collecting information. So the last user interaction or user input was that device unlock. But your phone is still collecting data and still functioning and still working afterwards, as long as you have it powered on.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Just briefly. Now you indicated from your opinion that the last interaction with the phone was approximately around 1:35, but you would admit that you can't say definitively that the times after that particular time when the display was on was not because there was interaction with the phone, correct? You
The
can't
phone
say.
was not accessed, the data in the phone was not accessed. That's what I consider user interaction.
Okay, that's not my question. My question is whether or not you cannot definitively say that after that 1:35 time that the phone wasn't attempted to be accessed, not unlocked, but accessed.
True.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. You may step down. Madam Court Reporter, do you need to call for a break? Call someone to relieve you?
You know, I don't think she has anyone. If I could just get 5 minutes, you know.
Okay, we'll take 5. Court is in recess for 5 minutes. How are we doing on witnesses? How many left?
Your Honor, we are just for confirmation, the next witness will be very, very brief. Then I'm going to ask the OIC some questions, and then we have an FBI phone analyst. There's several witnesses who I think would be kind of ripe for stipulation if the defense is willing, because a lot of the remaining evidence is going to have to do with video extraction, so putting in a lot of video exhibits that underlie a compilation video. So unfortunately, it is going to be a little time consuming, but I have 2 witnesses that will be testifying to extensive video
See
extraction.
what you guys can work out.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Be back in 5.
So basically, like, let's see.
Yeah.
Collection of OIC, search warrant execution, stuff. That's finalized. So
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm gonna admit the whole thing. So, like, this is a strong one of the things is to try to balance some in terms of geographies and stuff.
We may be able to get into touch with them as far as that one.
Yeah, see what you can, if not, it's just gonna be kind of repetitive, like, hey, I'm holding a disc.
Yeah.
Did you extract video from this location? You know, it's like, not really.
Probably good to skip that.
Right.
Officer, our 5 minutes are up. Can you have the parties come back in? Okay, we are back on the record on People versus Jackson Bolanos. People, you ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the people call Sergeant Jameer McIntyre. For the record, his name is spelled Jameaire. McIntyre spelled Mcentire.
You know that first thing over.
Good afternoon, sir. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. Feel free to take that microphone to your left and place it on your lap.
Yes, sir.
Begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name for the record?
It's Jameer McIntyre.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a policeman for the city of Detroit.
And what is your current role?
My current role is the squad leader for the homicide task force.
And in connection with your role with the homicide task force, did you participate in the investigation into the death of Samantha Woll?
Yes, sir.
And as part of your role in the investigation, did you at some point go to the Wayne County Medical Examiner's office?
Yes, sir.
And what was your purpose of going to the Wayne County Medical Examiner's office?
My purpose was to collect some evidence from Ms. Wall, which would have been her clothing, fingernail clippings, and her morgue blood.
Okay, and when you say morgue blood, what do you mean by morgue blood?
That's just a sample of the decedent that the examiners at the morgue take with a syringe and they place it in a vial of blood, which is then transferred to the police department for later evidentiary use.
Okay, and with regard to the blood sample that you collected, what, I guess, led you to believe it was blood associated with Samantha Woll specifically?
Well, that's one of the requests that we make to the staff.
Okay.
And it's assigned to the person's medical examiner number that they're given.
Okay, and was there a specific medical examiner number associated with the sample of blood that you connected as it relates to this case?
Yes, if memory serves, Ms. Wall's ME number was 2312996.
Okay, and when you collected that blood sample, what did you do with it?
It was transported back to police headquarters and placed on evidence.
Okay, and when it was placed on evidence, was there a specific evidence number associated with that blood sample?
I believe I placed it on evidence as item number 48.
Okay, thank you, sir. No further questions.
Cross-examine?
No questions.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
At this time, the people call Trooper Elizabeth Stockmeyer.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Did the court reporter get her name? Please have a seat. The witness box next to me. Speak into the microphone to the stick on your left. Thank you. Place that in your lap and speak directly. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. And could you please state your name for the record, ma'am?
Elizabeth Stockmeyer.
And what do you do for a living?
I work for the Michigan State Police.
And what is your current role with the Michigan State Police?
I'm a detective trooper on the homicide task force.
And do you have any specific role as it relates to the investigation into the death of Samantha Woll?
Yes, I'm the officer in charge of the investigation.
Okay, and what is, just for the record, being the officer in charge encompass in terms of your role and duties regarding this investigation?
Overseeing the investigation and presenting the case to the prosecutor's office.
Okay. You heard Trooper Martinez testify about obtaining certain records from ADT, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity during the course of your role with the investigation to go to the victim's residence at 1366 Joliet Place?
Yes.
And was that residence equipped with any type of home security system?
Yes, an ADT system.
Okay. And can you describe just briefly how that system was configured in her residence?
It was a security system with several sensors around the home.
Okay, and where were those sensors located?
There was one by her front door, one for the living room, and one for the back door, and also the basement door.
Okay, and Your Honor, I'm holding what's been marked as people's proposed exhibits 15 and 16. These are copied of certified business records obtained from ADT on the two search warrant returns that were described by Trooper Martinez. I'm asking for these documents to be admitted under Michigan Rule of Evidence 902, subsection 11, as certified records of regularly conducted activity.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I publish?
Yes.
And may I approach the witness first, Your Honor?
You may.
Hand these to you. I'm handing you people's proposed exhibits 15 and 16. And starting with people's exhibit 16, could you just describe in general what that is?
This is the return for the search warrant that we authored for Samantha Woll's residence.
Okay, and what sort of information, as a general matter, is contained in that search warrant return?
It contains the information collected from all the sensors within her ADT system from the dates, looks like November 8th through the 10th.
Okay, and Your Honor, may I have permission to share my screen for this? Thank you.
And Your Honor, I just a brief objection. I'm not sure if this trooper has been established that has any personal knowledge of this particular ADT, whether or not she executed the search warrant and served the search warrant, or the return of this particular information was directed towards her, and she had an opportunity to review this information to authenticate its accuracy.
Your Honor, the records have already been admitted under Michigan Rule of Evidence 902, subsection 11.
Did she testify what she did with those records?
To some extent, yes. To start, I'm basically just going to ask her questions about certain line items in the record, basically to just, for the record,
Lay a
confirm.
foundation that she would have that knowledge.
Okay. Trooper Stockmeyer, did these records that have been admitted as people's proposed exhibit 15 and 16, are you familiar with these records?
Yes.
And have you reviewed and analyzed these records during the course of your investigation?
Yes.
And again, what sort of basic information do these records, I guess, reflect as a general matter?
It reflects the testing which my team conducted on.
Start with exhibit 15. Is there a time frame associated with the records in exhibit 15?
Yes, this would have included the time and date of the homicide.
Okay, that would be October 21st, 2023.
Correct.
And when it comes to that date, do the records in Exhibit 15 give us information about certain activities associated with the ADT security system at Samantha Woll's home?
Yes.
And by way of example, does that include, for instance, whether the door was closed, the front door?
Correct.
Does that include whether motion was detected in the living room?
Yes.
And for events such as those, are there times associated with those events in the records?
Yes.
And did your team and you personally do anything to pressure test the accuracy of the time reflected in the records that have been admitted as People's Exhibit 15?
Yes.
And what specifically did you and your team do to pressure test the accuracy of the times in those records?
We returned to her residence and tested when the sensors would be alerted.
Okay, and when you returned to the residence, you were there personally,
Yes,
and you took you took direct part in that test.
yes.
And just help me understand just briefly what that test entailed.
So the system would be armed, and we would test to see when notifications would be sent to Ms. Wall's phone, which we had placed on evidence. And we would enter the residence and test to see if the sensor was accurate with the time that we had in real time and the notifications coming to her phone, and as well what would cause certain sensors to be notified.
Okay, and when your team was conducting this test, were notes or records kept of when certain things were done inside the residence, like entering the living room?
Yes.
And once the test was completed, were additional records obtained from ADT from the day of the testing?
Yes.
And those additional records that were obtained from ADT from the day of the testing, are those what have been admitted as People's Exhibit 16 that you're holding in your hand?
Yes.
And as a general matter, based on your analysis of those records and the investigation, were you able to determine whether the times reflected, the date and time reflected in the records are accurate?
Yes.
And what was, I guess, the basis of your conclusion that the dates and times are accurate?
We looked at the sensor time and compared it with real time, and it was a matter of 15 seconds. I believe that was the difference.
Okay. And so if I were to ask you basic questions about what these records contain in terms of data about specific events